Reincarnation as a Spiritual Mission, the story of Dorothy Eady and the Hidden Secrets of Ancient Egypt, London, 1907. The metallic sound of horses' hooves echoes along the cobblestone streets as the light rain fogs up the windows. In the Eady household, silence is shattered by a dull thud. Dorothy, only 3 years old, tumbles down the steep staircase, her small body lying motionless on the cold floor of the hall. The family doctor slowly closes his leather bag, his hands trembling almost imperceptibly. "I'm sorry," he whispers to the devastated parents. The little girl is gone. A white sheet covers Dorothy's pale face as silent tears stream down her mother's cheeks. But something extraordinary happens in the stillness of that night. When the first rays of sunlight pierce through the heavy curtains, a soft moan echoes through the room. Dorothy stirs beneath the sheet, her eyes opening slowly. But there is something different in that gaze, an ancient depth, as if millennia of memories had awakened. "Where am I?" she asks, her childish voice weighted with a strange melancholy. "This isn't my home. I need to go home." Her parents exchange bewildered looks. Dorothy was alive, but something fundamental had changed in her during those moments between life and death. She gazes out the window, looking at the London streets with eyes that seemed to search for pyramids on the horizon. In the weeks that followed, Dorothy would begin to speak of a faraway place, of golden temples, and of a love that transcended death. But no one yet imagined that the accident had awakened a 3,000-year-old spiritual mission. Before continuing with this true story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and leave a comment telling me from which country you're watching this video. I always read them and love to know how far my reach goes. Months go by and little Dorothy transforms into an unrecognizable child. Sitting on the nursery floor, she draws compulsively with colored chalk, not the expected childish figures, but complex hieroglyphs that seem to dance across the wall as though they were a familiar language. "Daddy, why do people here wear these strange clothes?" Dorothy asks at dinner, pointing to her parents' Victorian garments. Her small hands gesture as if describing something magnificent. "Where are the white linen tunics and the gold necklaces? And why isn't there incense burning?" Her mother drops the spoon onto the porcelain plate. Dorothy speaks with the ease of someone describing her own home, but a home that exists only in history books. At night, when the house sleeps, Dorothy wanders the dark hallways whispering in an unknown tongue. Her parents find her kneeling before the fireplace, her small hands lifted in prayer, reciting words that sound like ancient chants. "Bentrasit," she murmurs in her sleep. "Bentrasit needs to go home." One day, during a visit to the British Museum, Dorothy stops before a black granite statue. Her eyes fill with tears as she slowly approaches, her hands reverently touching the cold stone. "Seti," she whispers, and there is so much love and sorrow in that single word that the nearby visitors turn to look. "My beloved Seti, I promised I would return." Something far greater than a simple childhood memory was manifesting, and Dorothy carried within her small body the key to a mystery that would soon challenge everything science believed it knew about death and consciousness. Dorothy, now 18, walks through the galleries of the British Museum with the grace of someone who knows every corridor. Her eyes, still carrying that ancient depth, stop before a newly arrived photograph from Egypt. It is an image of the Temple of Abydos, its majestic columns rising from the golden sands. "This is it," she whispers, her hands trembling as she touches the glass frame. "This is my home." Dr. Margaret Murray, a renowned archaeologist and one of the few respected women in the field of Egyptology, observes Dorothy from a distance. There is something in the young woman's posture, in the way she moves among the antiquities, that stirs her scientific curiosity. "Excuse me, miss." Dr. Murray approaches, her sharp eyes peering through wire-rimmed glasses. "You seem to know these pieces well. Have you studied Egyptology?" Dorothy turns, and for a moment, Dr. Murray feels as if she is looking into the eyes of someone far older. "I haven't studied, Doctor. I remember." The answer reverberates through the silent hall like an impossible confession. Dr. Murray, accustomed to scientific rigor, feels a shiver run down her spine. There is something in Dorothy's voice, an absolute certainty that defies any rational explanation. "I remember the smell of incense burning at dawn," Dorothy continues, her eyes closed as if transported, the prayers echoing through the secret chambers, the touch of cold stone beneath my bare feet. Dr. Murray picks up her notebook, her hands trembling slightly. If Dorothy is telling the truth, this would revolutionize everything we know about consciousness and memory. If she is lying, and well, Then she is the most convincing liar Murray has ever met. "Dorothy," she says softly, "would you like to work with me? I have an expedition planned for Egypt." Fate had just set Dorothy on the path back home and toward a discovery that would shake the very foundations of modern science. Abydos, 1933. The desert sun beats relentlessly down on Dr. Murray's archaeological team as Dorothy steps for the first time in decades into the temple she claims was once her home. The air, heavy with sand and history, fills her lungs as if she can finally breathe freely again. The purification chamber is there. Dorothy points to an apparently solid wall, her voice echoing through the millennia-old columns. Behind that stone, there's a passage leading to the priest's private quarters. Dr. Murray raises a skeptical eyebrow. The official temple maps show no chamber at that location, but something in Dorothy's absolute certainty makes her jot down the coordinates in her field notebook. Dorothy walks through the temple with her eyes closed, her hands gliding along the limestone walls as if she were reading a book in Braille. Here, she stops before an apparently ordinary column. There's a dedicatory inscription that was covered during the 12th century BC restoration. It speaks of the rituals of preparation for the afterlife. The archaeologists exchange skeptical glances, but when they begin carefully excavating the base of the column, layers of centuries-old plaster reveal exactly what Dorothy had described: intact hieroglyphs recounting the soul's journey between lives. "Impossible," murmurs Dr. Murray's assistant, his hands smeared with ancient dust. How could she know this? But Dorothy had already moved on, kneeling before a granite slab. "Seti used to come here on nights of the new moon," she whispers, tears streaming down her sunburned face. "He brought papyrus scrolls with the secrets of reincarnation. He said that one day when I returned, I would need to remind the world." Her words echo through the silent temple like an ancient promise being fulfilled. Dr. Murray feels a shiver down her spine as she records every detail, knowing she is witnessing something science has yet to explain. But Dorothy is only beginning to reveal the secrets she has carried for millennia. Night falls over Abydos, like a black velvet veil studded with ancient stars. Dorothy walks alone through the temple corridors, a flickering candle in her hands as shadows dance across hieroglyph-covered walls. The silence is broken only by the soft echo of her bare footsteps. "Bentrasit." The voice reverberates through the empty halls, deep and familiar, filled with a love that transcends millennia. Dorothy turns slowly, and there, materializing between the columns like golden smoke taking form, stands the majestic figure of a pharaoh, Seti the Pharaoh, exactly as she remembers, tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing eyes that hold the wisdom of lost ages. His skin glows with the ethereal sheen of one who dwells between worlds. "My beloved," Dorothy whispers, her voice breaking with emotion. "You came. I promised we would meet again." Seti steps closer, his presence filling the space with a soft light that casts no shadow. "The time has come, Bentrasit. Humanity is ready to know the secrets we guarded." Dorothy falls to her knees, tears flowing freely. "I remember everything now. The final ceremony, the sacred papyri, our eternal promise. But how can I convince the world? They see only an Englishwoman with impossible memories." Seti extends his translucent hand, and when it touches Dorothy's face, she feels a flood of memories rushing like fresh water. She sees herself once more as Bentrasit, a young priestess of 20, her black hair braided with strands of gold, her eyes lined with kohl, dedicating her life to the mysteries of the afterlife. "The papyri are still where we left them," Seti whispers, "in the sealed chamber beneath the altar of Osiris. There you will find the proof the modern world requires, ancient texts on the science of reincarnation, maps of the soul's journey, and the truth about our eternal mission." The apparition begins to fade like morning mist, but his voice rings clear. "Remember, my beloved, you did not return only to recall but to reveal. The world must know that death is not an end, but a transformation." Dorothy remains kneeling on the temple's cold floor, now knowing exactly what she must do. Dawn at Abydos. Dr. Murray finds Dorothy exactly where she had left her the night before, kneeling before the altar of Osiris. But now something is different in her eyes. A determination that wasn't there before, as if an ancestral mission had finally crystallized in her mind. "Doctor," Dorothy rises, her clothes still damp with morning dew, "I need to show you something that will change everything we know about death." Dr. Murray adjusts her glasses, notebook already open in her hands. As a scientist, she had learned to question everything, but the last few days had pushed the limits of her rationality. "What have you discovered, Dorothy?" "I didn't discover it," Dorothy corrects, walking toward the central altar. "I remembered." Her hands glide over the black granite surface until they find a small imperfection in the stone. "Here, there's a sealed chamber 16 steps below this point. Inside are the papyri seti, and I hid 3,000 years ago." The archaeological team gathers, skeptical but intrigued. Dorothy takes a hammer and begins tapping gently on the stone floor. At one spot, the sound changes. It becomes hollow, revealing an empty space beneath. "My God," whispers Dr. Murray's assistant. "There really is something here." After hours of careful excavation, the team uncovers a stone slab with intact hieroglyphic inscriptions. When they remove it, a narrow staircase is revealed, descending into absolute darkness. The rising air carries the millennia-old scent of incense and preserved papyrus. Dorothy descends first, torch in hand, followed by the team in reverent silence. 16 steps down, the torchlight reveals a small but perfectly preserved chamber. On the walls, golden hieroglyphs tell the story of the soul's journey after death. At the center, an intact cedarwood chest. "The texts of reincarnation," Dorothy whispers, her hands trembling as she touches the chest. 3,000 years waiting to be revealed. Dr. Murray feels her legs weaken. If Dorothy is right, they have just uncovered archaeological evidence that could prove the continuity of consciousness after death. Science would never be the same again. But upon opening the chest, they find something even more extraordinary than they expected. The golden light of the torch dances over perfectly preserved papyri as Dr. Murray carefully opens the cedar chest. The air in the chamber remains still, as if even time itself has paused to witness the moment. Dorothy steps closer, her eyes shining with recognition of something long lost. "The Book of Eternal Souls," she whispers, her hands hovering over the first papyrus before she restrains herself. "Seti wrote it with his own hand, based on the visions we received during the temple rituals." Dr. Murray lifts her magnifying glass, examining the hieroglyphs with the reverence of one handling sacred relics. The texts are unlike anything she has ever seen. Not mere funerary instructions like the Book of the Dead, but detailed descriptions of how consciousness transfers between bodies, how memories are preserved, and how certain souls return with specific missions. "Here," Dorothy points to a particular section, her voice heavy with emotion. "It speaks of our own story. Bentrasit, priestess of Osiris, and Seti, scribe of the sacred mysteries. It says we would return in a future age, when humanity was ready to accept the truth of the soul's eternity." Dr. Murray's assistant shines his lantern over another papyrus. "Doctor, look at this. They're maps. Maps of what seems to be the soul's journey after death, with stopping points, challenges to face, and portals of return." Dorothy closes her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. "During the rituals, Seti and I saw these journeys, souls preparing to return, choosing their next lives, their families, their challenges. It isn't a random process. It is a precise spiritual science." Dr. Murray feels her scientific worldview trembling. "Dorothy, if these texts are authentic and carbon-14 tests confirm their age, this will revolutionize not only archaeology, but neuroscience, psychology, our entire understanding of consciousness." "But there's more," Dorothy says, taking the last papyrus from the chest, her hands shaking. "This one contains the instructions to prove reincarnation. Seti wrote specific methods for verifying past life memories, techniques that can be tested by modern science." The chamber's silence is broken only by the sound of held breaths. They had not merely found historical artifacts, they had discovered an ancient scientific manual on the immortality of consciousness. But as they left the chamber with their revolutionary discovery, they could not yet imagine the resistance they would face. Oxford University, 6 months later. The lecture hall is packed with Europe's most respected archaeologists, Egyptologists, and scientists. Dr. Murray stands at the podium, nervous but resolute, while Dorothy sits in the front row, the Abydos papyri displayed in light-proof cases. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Murray clears her throat, "the carbon-14 tests have confirmed. These papyri date to 1290 BC, the exact reign of Seti I. More importantly, they contain information never before uncovered by modern archaeology." A skeptical murmur ripples through the audience. Professor Hamilton, known for his uncompromising scientific rigor, raises his hand. "Dr. Murray, How do you explain that an English woman with no academic training could locate these texts with such precision? Dorothy rises slowly, her presence commanding silent attention. Professor Hamilton, I can answer that. She walks to the blackboard and without hesitation begins drawing complex hieroglyphs. This symbol represents the soul's journey between bodies. This one, the laws that govern reincarnation. The room falls into absolute silence as Dorothy continues writing fluent hieroglyphs, translating simultaneously. A soul may choose to return when it has an incomplete mission. It will carry with it the memories needed to fulfill its purpose, even if they seem impossible to the modern world. Professor Hamilton rises abruptly. This is impossible. How can you write hieroglyphs with such fluency without years of study? Because I didn't learn, Dorothy replies with devastating simplicity. I remember. Dr. Murray projects photographs onto the wall, images of discoveries made by following Dorothy's indications. In 6 months, relying solely on Dorothy's memories, we have uncovered 3 secret chambers, 14 previously unknown papyri, and an entire library of spiritual practices science believed lost forever. Climatologist Dr. Thompson, an expert in artifact preservation, interjects, we tested the papyri in 5 independent laboratories, all confirmed the same dating. More intriguingly, the preservation method used is superior to what we know today. How do you explain that? Dorothy closes her eyes, her voice taking on a different, deeper tone. Because Seti and Bentressi knew these texts had to survive millennia, they used sacred techniques, blending science with spirituality, to ensure the truth would reach the right era. The room erupts in heated debate. Some scientists storm out in outrage, others remain captivated. The scientific world would never be the same, but for Dorothy, the mission was only just beginning. Silent night in Dorothy's hotel room in Oxford. She is sitting by the window, watching the city lights as she organizes her memories as Bentressi, some still fragmented, others crystalline as if they had happened yesterday. Dr. Murray knocks at the door, carrying a stack of reports and a steaming cup of tea. Dorothy, she enters, her eyes tired but shining with scientific curiosity. I need to understand. How does it work? How do your memories of Bentressi remain so vivid after 3,000 years? Dorothy accepts the tea, her hands warming against the delicate porcelain. Imagine consciousness as light, Doctor. The light doesn't die when a candle goes out. It simply changes form, moves somewhere else. The soul works the same way. She stands, walking to the window. When Bentressi was dying, Seti and she performed a specific ritual. It wasn't just a farewell. It was a conscious programming so that essential memories would survive the transition. But how is that scientifically possible? Dr. Murray takes her notebook, always writing. The papyri explain it. Dorothy smiles softly. Consciousness isn't produced by the brain, it's channeled through it. Like a radio picking up waves that already exist in the ether. When the body dies, the waves continue existing, searching for a new receiver. Dr. Murray stops writing, absorbing the implications. You're saying consciousness is a force independent of the physical body? Exactly. And some souls, when they have important missions, can keep communication channels open between lives. That's why I could locate the papyri. They weren't lost to me, just temporarily inaccessible. Dorothy picks up one of the translated papyri from the table. Here, Seti explains that there are different levels of reincarnation. Most souls return without conscious memories of the past, but some, the ones with unfinished work, receive specific downloads of information. Downloads? Selected memories needed to fulfill the mission. We don't remember everything. It would be impossible to function, but we remember what is essential. Knowledge, relationships, promises made. Dr. Murray feels a shiver run down her spine. Dorothy, if this is true, it means some people walk among us, carrying the wisdom of lost civilizations. Not some people, Doctor, Dorothy whispers, gazing at the stars. Many, more than you imagine. The world is about to discover that death is only a pause between chapters of a much greater story. 2 years had passed since the revelation of the Abydos papyri. The world was never the same again. Dorothy was in her home in Cairo, transformed into a center of pilgrimage for scientists, spiritualists, and the curious from all over the world. Letters arrived daily from people recounting their own memories of past lives, as if Dorothy's discovery had opened a cosmic floodgate. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the famous Swiss psychiatrist specializing in death and dying, was sitting on the veranda with Dorothy, watching the Nile flow golden under the setting sun. Dorothy, do you realize what you've set in motion? Hospitals around the world report terminal patients speaking of past lives with impossible detail. Dorothy smiled, stirring her mint tea. It wasn't me, Doctor, it was time. Humanity was ready to remember. I was just the first domino. In the living room, stacks of scientific journals showed the consequences. Harvard University launches research on past life memory. Institute of Psychiatry in London documents 347 cases of xenoglossy. Archaeologists discover temples following impossible memories of children. Dr. Kubler-Ross leafed through her own reports. I've documented extraordinary cases. 3-year-old children speaking dead languages, describing medical surgeries from ancient times, recounting the names of relatives who died centuries before they were born. And the skeptics? Dorothy asked, though she already knew the answer. Divided. Some still deny everything, but others are beginning to accept that there is something beyond traditional neuroscience. Cambridge University has even created an entire department dedicated to the study of the continuity of consciousness. Dorothy stood, walking to the library she had created, hundreds of accounts, photographs, and documents sent by people from all over the world. Seti told me that when the truth was revealed, it would be like lighting a candle in a dark room. Soon, other candles would light themselves. Do you still speak with him? Every night, Dorothy whispered. He shows me other souls who are awakening, other missions being activated, doctors remembering themselves as ancient healers, artists carrying techniques from lost civilizations, scientists with knowledge that transcends their academic training. Dr. Kubler-Ross felt a familiar shiver. Dorothy, are you saying we are experiencing a collective awakening? Not just experiencing, Doctor. Dorothy looked toward the horizon, where the sun was setting over the distant pyramids. We are orchestrating it. Each soul that awakens helps others remember. That's how the plan has always worked. The world was about to discover that reincarnation was not only real, it was an organized system of conscious evolution. Temple of Abydos, 1981. Dorothy, now 77 years old, lies on her simple bed in the room she built inside the temple itself. She had decided to spend her final days where it all began, where Bentrezit had lived, and where the 3,000-year mission would finally be completed. Dr. Murray, now an elderly woman with white hair, holds her hand while watching Dorothy's breathing grow softer. You did it, my dear, Dr. Murray whispers, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. The world has accepted it. Hospitals use your techniques to help terminal patients. Universities study reincarnation as a science. Children all over the world speak openly about their past lives without being considered insane. Dorothy smiles faintly, her eyes still shining with that ancient light. It wasn't me, Margaret. It was Seti. It was Bentrezit. It was all the souls who took part in this plan. I was only the channel. The walls of the room seem to vibrate with a subtle energy. The air grows denser, charged with a familiar presence. Dorothy looks toward the corner of the room where the ethereal figure of Seti materializes, clearer than ever, his arms outstretched toward her. My beloved, Dorothy whispers, her voice growing stronger. Is it time? The first phase is complete, Bentrezit. Seti approaches, his golden light filling the room. The portals are open. The seeds have been planted. Now other souls will take up the work. Dr. Murray feels a warm presence surrounding her, though she sees nothing. Dorothy, who are you talking to? With my eternal partner. Dorothy closes her eyes, a deep peace spreading across her face. He came to take me home, but also to show me what comes next. Dorothy opens her eyes one last time, and Dr. Murray is struck to see that they shine with a light of their own. Margaret, promise me one thing. Keep documenting. Others like me will come. Doctors who will remember ancient healings, scientists with knowledge beyond their education, leaders who will carry the wisdom of lost civilizations. How will I know who they are? You'll know. Dorothy smiles, her hand gently squeezing Dr. Murray's. They will carry the same light in their eyes, the same impossible certainty, the same mission to reveal that death is only a transition. Dorothy closes her eyes, her breathing now a whisper. Seti, I'm ready to go home. When Dr. Murray feels Dorothy's hand loosen in hers, she realizes she is not witnessing a death, but a graduation. A soul completing its mission and returning home, leaving behind a world forever transformed. But as Seti had promised, this was only the first phase of a much greater plan. 20 years after Dorothy's passing, the world had been transformed in ways she had only dreamed of. Dr. Sarah Chen, a Harvard neurobiologist and one of the leading experts in continuity of consciousness, is in the same room of the Abydos temple where Dorothy spent her last days. In her hands, She holds the final volume of the Encyclopedia Impossible Memories, a collection of 15,000 documented cases of reincarnation worldwide. Incredible, she murmurs to Dr. Murray, now 89 but still lucid and determined. Dorothy planted a seed that became a forest. We now have research institutes in 40 countries, medical protocols for dealing with past life memories, and even therapies based on the Abydos papyri. Dr. Murray walks slowly to the window, watching groups of pilgrims from every nationality visiting the temple. Sarah, do you realize that Dorothy wasn't an isolated case? In recent years, we've documented hundreds of people with similar memories. Architects who remember building medieval cathedrals, doctors who know surgical techniques from lost civilizations, musicians who compose in scales that shouldn't exist. Dr. Chen consults her tablet, displaying a world map dotted with lights. Each point represents a confirmed case of past life memory. The pattern is clear. They are not random occurrences. There's an organizing intelligence behind it, as if different souls are being activated, as humanity becomes capable of accepting certain truths. A soft breeze enters through the window, carrying the scent of incense that seems to come from nowhere. Dr. Murray smiles, recognizing the familiar sign. She's still here, you know. Dorothy, Bentrisit, or perhaps they're the same soul in different aspects. What do you mean? In recent years, I've been having extraordinary dreams. I see Dorothy showing me the future, hospitals where death is treated as transition, schools where children learn about their past lives, a civilization that finally understands consciousness is eternal. Dr. Chen feels a shiver down her spine. Margaret, I have to tell you something. I began this research as an absolute skeptic, but in recent months, I've been having strange memories. I remember working in a laboratory that shouldn't exist, with equipment we haven't invented yet. The two women look at each other, recognizing something profound in each other's eyes. Dorothy's legacy was not only historical, it was personal, intimate, ongoing. The mission continues, Dr. Murray whispers, her voice filled with certainty. Dorothy opened the first portal, but others will follow. Humanity is learning that death is not an end, but a pause between chapters of an eternal story. As the sun sets over Abydos, painting the temple in gold, a sense of conclusion and new beginning lingers in the air. Reincarnation is no longer a mystery. It is a recognized spiritual science, a bridge between worlds that Dorothy and Seti built with love, determination, and unshakable faith in the continuity of consciousness. The world had finally understood that some souls return not by chance, but by love for humanity, for truth, and for the collective awakening that transforms entire civilizations. The 3,000-year mission was complete, but like every true ending, it was also a new beginning.